Welcome to Yoke's YouTube channel. I'm Liz Mathew, the regulated Canadian immigration consultant. Thanks for tuning in. So today we will be discussing about RCIP. The RCIP, they had introduced that they will be opening up soon. Yes, they have launched, and some of the communities have opened up their websites. Basically, Timmins and Sault Ste. Marie has opened it for right now. So today in this video, we will be looking at RCIP Timmins. Basically, what are their requirements and how the steps need to be followed and things like that. So this is by the Timmins Economic Development Corporation. They are the ones who actually do the RCIP. And so they are basically the RCIP Timmins is focusing on priority sectors. And so the priority sectors are health, education, law and social community and government services, trades and transport, natural resources and agriculture, business, finance, and administration. Well, as you can see, it's a very competitive program that the RCIP Timmins has brought about. Just like any other PNP or federal programs, they have put in restrictions in place as there is limited allocations and limited invitation numbers. So the sectors were introduced, and apart from that, they have also mentioned the NOC codes that will be specifically under the priority occupations like financial advisors, welders, and related machine operators. These are just some of them that are in demand. And then the PSW 33102, the elementary school and kindergarten teachers are also in there. The social and community service workers are there. So social workers and heavy duty equipment mechanics are also there. And then there's a lot more is there. We will be putting the list on the screen for you to look at. And also the excluded occupations under the trades and transportation. Yes, they are in there, but there are some excluded occupation under the trades and transportation, which is the dispatchers, NOC 14404. They are excluded from the list, and also 75200 taxi and limousine drivers. They are also excluded from that list. And in order for an employer to participate in the Timmins Regional Community Program, the RCIP program, an employer must be designated. So the employer does need to go through a whole lot of process to get themselves designated. And if you are successful in securing a job offer from a designated employer and they agree to support your application, they will provide you with an offer of employment form. And once you have a valid job offer from a designated employer, the employer will submit an application for community recommendation during one of the monthly intake periods. So they did release the intake periods for Timmins. And so that is the role of the employer to make sure that they are submitting all your proper documents to Timmins during those intake periods. So basically that is for the community recommendation. In order for you to receive the Timmins community recommendation, employer needs to submit that documents. So you do understand that employers do have a lot at stake. So make sure you do have all your documents submitted properly to the employer, and the employer communicates it to the Timmins community directly properly. And the earliest intake period that is in place is on April 27, 2025. So that is the first intake, and that will start from 12 a.m. and that is supposed to run until May 3rd. So that is the first intake. They have promised that they will be calling once a month. There will be once a month intake. So one in April, then in May, then in June, all the way up to November. They have given out the dates for the intake periods for the employer to submit for a community recommendation. And how this application will be processed is that Timmins RCIP applications, they will be in a pool using a point-based system. So If you do meet all the application criterias and you have a minimum score point of 50 points, you will be placed in the candidate pool. So the community scoring grid for the pool is basically, they haven't released it yet. We're still waiting on that. Timmins website will be updating that soon. And also draws will be completed once a month. And the highest scoring applications in the pool of each of the draw date will be further assessed by the Timmins TEDC organization. So that's how it works. And also there will be a tie-breaking rule in place. So if there is more than one candidate who has the lowest score, the cutoff is based on the date and time they submitted their application. That is whichever was submitted first. So that's a tie-breaking rule. And applications not selected will be in the pool for another 6 months. Hopefully your points will improve by then. And as I told you, how these points are being given or for what type of experience or wage or whatever it is, they haven't really released the grid yet. So we still have to wait for that. So basically, based on that points, you will be receiving invitation. And if your employer's recommendation, remember we have initially submitted during the intake periods, the employer has submitted the recommendation, community recommendation. And if you receive that community recommendation by the employer, you directly apply to PR, to IRCC. So that's how it works. And the recommendation certificate, it does have an expiry date, which is of 6 months. And receiving a community certificate doesn't guarantee you permanent residence. You got to apply for permanent residence through the PNP route. So that's how it's worked. And once you have applied for your permanent residence to the IRCC, you will be asked to communicate with the TEDC, the Timmins community, and your employer to share details and timelines about your relocation to the region, if that is what it is, if you haven't relocated to the area yet. And your employer will support you by connecting you to settlement services, helping you to integrate into the workplace and the community as well. So also work permit extensions can be applied based on your PR application. RCIP will be providing 2 years of work permit based on your application submission. And it lets your employer, as your employer has offered you the job, you will be able to apply for work permit based on that, the employment job offer. You should have an eligible offer of employment from your designated employer, have a recommendation from your participating community, and meet the criteria to apply for the work permit. Basically, that's how you can even put in a work permit extension. And this work permit extension, you will be granted for 2 years, which is a good thing if you have submitted your RCIP permanent residence to IRCC. So that, as you can see, it's quite a long process, beginning with the recommendation certificate submitted by the employer to receive a community recommendation, to receiving your permanent residence card in hand. Start to beginning, it's quite a tedious task. It might be time consuming. It might take quite a long time. So make sure you plan yourself out. So somebody whose work permit is expiring in the next 3 months or next 6 months, I'd say if you go ahead and say that, hey, I'm going to move into the community, gain some experience, and I'll be able to get through this program. Well, it sounds a little bit too overwhelming, because you might be in a very stressful situation, as the timelines for each of these processing, it doesn't seem like things would happen really quick. We don't have processing times yet because this is still a developing program. So hopefully things work out for people who are in that community, in the Timmins community, and your employer is a designated employer and ready to help you out, and wish you all the best. So as always we will be taking up a question. So the question for today that we had received in our Bridging Open Work Permit video that we had done earlier, it says, if the open work permit is expired and PR is under process of CEC, is there any chance to get eligibility to work? Well, open work permit is expired. I do understand, but there's so much things that are unknown in this question. Like, what is the status of this individual? Is this individual currently on visitor record? And if you are on visitor record, you cannot apply for a bridging open work permit based on just because your application was submitted, your work permit has expired, you are on visitor record, and based on that, you cannot move to a bridging open work permit. Bridging open work permit is basically for people who are already in Canada on a work permit, and before their expiry of their work permit, they can apply for their bridging open work permit and continue working. So that's how it works. Hopefully I have been clear, and thank you all for tuning in. See you in the next video.